Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
I used to work at a Michael's Arts and Crafts, and every week this one special guy would come in. He was fucking huge with big bug eyes and would just walk around the store and look for the other female employees he knew and ask them weird questions about themselves. Then go on to talk about the weather and say weird cryptic shit about Mother Nature. He apparently wasn't even supposed to be at the store half the time, he just escaped his wranglers. He creeped out a bunch of customers too, coming up and asking them and their kids questions in his completely monotone and eerie voice. Maybe I'm just scared of special people, but that guy freaked me out.
When I was about 10 years old, I was walking around in the woods behind the shed at my cabin. This was during the summer, so the foliage was pretty thick, but after a few minutes of wandering about I heard a bunch of branches crack. I looked around and didn't see anything, so I continued walking. Then I heard louder cracking and a strange panting noise, kind of like a grunt or something. I stopped and looked around some more, and what I saw I will never forget. A few yards from where I stood, an extremely large and hairy creature was standing by a tree, ripping branches and bark off of it. It was covered in shaggy, matted black hair and must have been at least 8 feet tall. I'm pretty sure this thing was Bigfoot. Naturally, I got scared, and regardless of my curiosity, I decided it wasn't a good idea to stay where I was, so I slowly began backing away from where I was standing. When it was no longer in my line of sight, I turned around and walked back toward the cabin as quickly as possible, and my heart was beating like crazy. But before I could leave, I noticed that the cracking sound was gone. I stopped in my tracks and nervously looked around. As I turned, I nearly had a heart attack because that thing was standing in the exact same spot that I was watching it from not but a minute or two before. It was looking right at me. I ran like hell and didn't look back. I'm 18 now and I haven't since gone back in those woods alone.
Oh God, how could I forget this one? It's recent. So I was at the gym recently, maybe a month or two ago. And I'm a pretty small guy, 5'10" and 145 pounds. But I enjoy lifting heavy, squats, deadlifts, etc. Well, anyways, there is this really weird guy standing next to me doing some strange wrist curl exercises, but I can feel him looking over at me while I'm doing my set. It's distracting as all hell, but I continue my exercise and move on to the next one. I didn't think anything of it because people usually watch me in the squat rack. Anyway, about an hour later I'm walking to the locker room and I go to wash my hands and get changed when this dude comes up to me. It's late at the gym because it's a 24-hour facility, and he tries to talk to me. Hey, I noticed you lift pretty heavy for your weight. I agree and ask if he's interested in lifting, etc. He tries telling me his life story about how he used to be a teacher and is going to school for biology. I'm really just being friendly and bullshitting this dude, but I say that I'm majoring in biology as well. Because I was at the time. He tells me how he's interested in being a personal trainer and all of this. I tell him that my mom is a personal trainer, etc. Really, I'm just being friendly. This guy is in his 40s probably. I tell him that I really had to get going because my mom was outside picking me up. He tells me to take down his number because maybe we can meet up at the gym sometime and lift. I pretend to take his number down and leave the locker room. First off, how fucking weird to follow someone into the locker room like that. Approach me on the floor, god damn. It made me really uncomfortable. Second, don't be weird as fuck about it. I'm only 20 years old. I am somewhat good looking. Guys always look at me in the gym like they want me. It bugs me. I'm straight, but I guess me being skinny does that. I have no idea what that's all about. Anyways, I leave the place and go home. A few months later, I am going to the gym with my buddy, and as we are walking to the gym, I see this guy leaving the gym. The same guy. I notice him before he notices me, and I avoid all eye contact and turn away and pretend to be interested in conversation with my friend. I tell him about the guy as we get into the gym, and he thinks it's weird and that I'm just overreacting, and the guy was probably a nice dude. We are in the middle of our squats and I see the fucker lurking around the gym. He had just left but must have turned around when he saw me. It wouldn't have been so weird if he had just come up to me as soon as he came back into the gym. But he creepily walked around the gym. For I kid you not, an hour and a half. I could feel him looking at me doing my sets and could just feel his fucking anticipation to approach me. I had never been so uncomfortable. He was seriously doing bullshit exercises like curling for an hour and then followed us to our next area and did some more bullshit curls. I could just feel this guy looking. He was walking around the bench where we were. I was so anxious, God, such a bad feeling. After 2 hours of walking around the gym staring at me, he comes up to me and says, "Hey. What's up?" He then says, "Don't you remember me?" I tell him I do and ask for his name again. "Dan." "Cool, Dan, how are you?" "I'm good. I gave you my number. How come you never called me?" "I was really looking forward to your call." I said, "I don't know, I just didn't call you. Is there a fucking problem, dude?" He then awkwardly said, "Oh, no problem," and walked away and did some wrist curls. I probably look like a dick, but I promise you that this dude was giving the most uncomfortable vibes I have ever gotten ever. Is this what it feels like to be a girl and to be hit on?
Last September I was babysitting my 2 cousins at my aunt's house. She pays me to hang out with them and we just go play Wii down in the basement. I came upstairs to get the phone and order some pizza, and I noticed the TV was left on and that my aunt had gotten this creepy 3-foot-high clown statue for the living room. Before I ordered the pizza, I called her to ask if I could move the statue from the living room. She said she didn't have a clown statue. I ran downstairs and got the kids out of the house. Apparently her oldest son, who's 8, kept saying a clown would come into his room at night and tickle him. My aunt just always assumed it was his imagination since he was never too scared or anything. When the police and my aunt got to the house, they found a shit ton of food wrappers in the attic and some blankets. Fuck, I've never been more scared in my life.
This isn't my story, but I've heard it enough times from my friends that I might have well been there. My friend lives out in the middle of nowhere on a dirt road. About a 1/2 mile down the road is the town's road upkeep place. I don't know what to call it. They've got piles of gravel to fix the dirt roads and sheds to keep the plows in. Anyways, my friend and a few other people like to walk up there at night. One night during the fall, September, if I remember right, they walked up there like normal. A car started coming up the road, so they went and hid in the woods a little ways away from the gravel piles because they weren't supposed to be there. The car stops in the pull-off next to the sheds and turns off its lights. My friends couldn't see anything after this as the car was partially obstructed and it was dark, but they claim that they heard people get out of the car and start doing something. They hear these god-awful screeches coupled with what sounds like people laughing. They don't know if they were torturing an animal or if it was a person making those sounds. My friend had nightmares for a month afterwards.
About 14, living in Central European city with parents. Taking tram into the city center with my mom. We're sitting down in the tram and this guy comes onto the bus. Massive overbite, bloody gums, clutching a white paper bag and giggling like a maniac. Must be special or insane or something. Creeps me the fuck out, takes a lunge or 2 at some women, but I get off the tram soon enough. Be 2 or 3 years later. It's Europe, so I'm chilling in a bar with some friends. The same guy comes into the bar. No paper bag, don't think there was any blood, but it was definitely the same guy. The bartender sees that he's going to be trouble and escorts him out. Guy leaves without a fuss.
When I was really young,
I lived in a 4-family apartment. This sketchy guy lived in the shittiest apartment on the first floor. I was about 7 at the time and I walked to the front of the house to get the mail. That guy was waiting on the sidewalk when I came back and offered me a stuffed animal if I went into his apartment. I didn't know any better and plus, I fucking loved stuffed animals, so I followed him inside. He said something about not accepting offers from strangers because it's dangerous and I could get hurt. I never told my mom and thought nothing of it until 10 years later. I don't know what his deal was, but if he was only trying to teach me a lesson, he did it in the creepiest way I could imagine.
Not a person, but a vehicle. It's a shit-conditioned truck with a makeshift wooden back bed. Usually the back of the truck is covered, and we can't see inside. On the back window is a wooden pentagram, and curtains cover the back window. The first time I saw it was at a store a couple years ago. Didn't think much of it other than its bizarre appearance and the symbol. A year later I spotted it parked outside my neighbor's house, who happened to be a rapper and pet killer, eater. Which freaked me out, thinking that whoever owns the truck was working with my neighbor before he got arrested. I started seeing it at various stores, and there was never anyone inside. One day we found it again, but the back window was opened. We pulled back the curtain and there was a coffin with stakes shoved into it. We assumed it was an unusual-looking hearse or the vehicle of a coffin maker. The front seats always had axes, saws, and hammers on them, so we were convinced he was just a coffin crafter. It kept returning to my neighbors, too. We often go to a cemetery to toke when we don't have a house to ourselves, and in the location where we usually parked, the car was parked. Eventually we found the back window open again. There were chains and machetes this time. Being paranoid people, we flipped shit whenever we saw the car from this point on. Eventually it drove past us on a dark, empty road. We turned around to get a glimpse of the driver and the car was parked in the middle of the road, and empty.
I already posted about them a while ago, so congrats on stupidly good memory if you remember, but my parents. They are fucking obsessed with threes. Some of their family members died at 33 and 66 and all my older relatives are creeped out by it. My parents' parents were really superstitious, so I think I'm lucky with my own. But they're still crazy. They forbid anything in threes. For instance, the salt and the pepper can't be next to the sugar. 2 of the bedroom doors in the hall have to be open if one is closed, and vice versa. We have 2 short snacks instead of lunch. 3 meals is a huge no-no. As if the shit would be poisoned by the superstition god or something. And so on. My dad once had this huge fit when he came home and saw that all the bedroom doors had been left open when we went to school. He and my mom had a talk and eventually decided to get some kind of exorcism or whatever the fuck done on our rooms. They keep this stuff really secret. So, yeah.
It's a tie between 3 people for me. So you guys pick. 1. The crazy extremist Christian guy. 2. My neighbor. 3. My ex-girlfriend after she went batshit insane. Mental disorder that she forgot to tell me about. Go figure, eh? Well, I first noticed she wasn't right in the head last summer. She had been wanting to get something to defend herself with while she was at work late at night. So, we went out together and she picked out a brush with a hidden shank in the handle. I thought, yeah, okay, whatever, I'll buy you a gun if you want. She wanted this damn brush. So, I bought it for her. We get home, and the first thing she does is push me on the bed. Oh boy, sexy time. Nope. Takes out the brush, tries to stab me. I knock it away. She manages to jab my hand, so the bitch stabs me, and claims she was playing. That same night, she deletes every girl's number in my phone, even relatives. Then for the rest of that year, up until this summer, I had a dream you cheated on me. If you ever leave me, I'll kill you. Who is she? I don't like your job. You work with too many women. I want you to quit. Finally, she threatens to break up with me and I'm like, yes. So I take her threat and run with it. Which is when all hell broke loose. And shit got really, really creepy after we broke up. Just to get her to shut up, I told her we were taking a long break. She comes to my house to get all her things, takes tons of my things. Tells my sister to tell her everything I do. Say. Sister goes along with it. Ex starts sleeping around to try and make me jealous. Lol, nope, not even mad. Week 2 she goes and gets drunk, gets in a wreck with all her friends. One of them happens to be a guy was really good friends with. Long Greentext short, they got in a wreck. My ex calls my sister talking about how awful it is, and to tell me. I say, tell her I said cool story bro. My ex tells all her friends and my friend who was with them that I wanted them all to die. They were all awful people, I'll come kill them etc. They believe her. Week 3 drunk calls, texts galore. My friend from the wreck calls, dude I'm coming to kick your ass. You don't wish that shit on anyone blah blah blah. Slept with loaded gun next to me. So all that shit dies down right, and the summer goes by, then just last week. Notice my car doors are open. Check inside. GPS stolen. Pile of old birthday, anniversary cards in my front seat. All from me to her.
The weirdest person I've ever met would be myself. Never met someone stranger, and yet apparently, I have no mental illness. I literally have no borderline concept of normal. Nothing disturbs me or freaks me out. On the bright side, this means I am about as non-judgmental as it gets, and get along with pretty much everybody. As for creepy, there's this man that would constantly appear in my dreams. Not as much now, but when I was younger, he was this tall, bald guy, with a black suit on. The worst part about him was his aura, it was completely visible. A raging cloud of inky, malevolent black. It was a huge, powerful aura too. Obviously, since he couldn't hide it. This man terrified me, though I don't know why. I would be having a normal dream, and then he would interrupt. He'd pop out of nowhere, smirk and say hello, and then proceed to turn my dream into a nightmare, causing all sorts of trouble. Or I would reach the main antagonist of my nightmare and discover he had been behind everything all along. I knew he was completely evil. Even my dream characters seemed to fear him. He had complete control over my dreams. He could pause them, or bend them to his will. I haven't seen him in my dreams in a while now, I think, but sometimes he disguises himself. I can always tell it's him by the aura though. Just typing about him is making me paranoid.
Went to high school with this guy who collected copper and was a bit of a gun nut. Reminded me of a fat Frank Castle. Kid was intense. Anyways, I am rather sure that he killed this kid in high school, this big bully, by doing something to his car and setting fire to this other person's house. He also was educated as fuck about the government and got me into the paranormal about some of the shit he had seen. Being chased by K9 unit through abandoned mining town. Things grabbing at him inside an Indian cave. Some of the shit he had seen in abandoned houses. Good friend but hates most people and hates crowds, don't like rap music or slutty women. Talk to him yourself if you want, he has a Skype. Beer floater, tell him Chase sent you or he'll just block you.
Here's mine. I work at a bakery in Oregon where the winters get cold but not always so much to be icy. I'm in a manager position and have to be there early, so it's usually just myself and a coworker that opens the front come 6:30 a.m. I arrive at 5 a.m. So one morning I'm unlocking the front for me to get in, when I see this old bag lady hanging around the facility. I think nothing of it and move on in to start the day. A few days go by and I see this same lady sitting right next to the door I'm unlocking again, keep my cool and ignore her. But oh, the smell. That same day I venture into the front barista to grab a bite and WTF is she doing here? JPG. My kind-hearted coworker decided to let her in because it's cold out there. She looked cold. Whatever, I say, thinking things will work out on their own. Nope. For days, nay, weeks, this lady, of whom smells like sweat that caked, turned into paste, then was mixed with toe jam and ass, then spread onto a moldy bread slice, then eaten and then shit out, went on to make our bakery front a halfway home for herself. Just fucking, time set up camp, and repeatedly built a fucking fort out of chairs and tables, practically, in our facility. For fuck's sake, this made me so angry that every person, including my boss, were beta about any kind of confrontation. I mean, this lady would stink up the whole place, sleep, sneeze on product, fuck up our bathroom, throw shit at our staff, and God knows what else. Yet our boss and the rest of the employees seemed to be fine not giving her the boot. One fine day I decide it's time for me to take a bathroom break. Looking forward to reading my book. Open door. What the flying fuck? JPG. Bag lady was there. The door should have been locked, but I suppose that didn't matter to her. She was what I can only describe doing a reverse cowgirl on the fucking toilet seat, Tros somehow dropped and all. At that point I closed the door and stabbed my eyes with forks. Get my shit together and fucking time to make this thing leave. Wait for bag lady to leave the bakery, takes many hours, approach bag lady, "Scuse me, ma'am." Grunts, scared? I don't think you should be approaching your customers. I just want to speak with you for a second. No, go away. Ma'am. I proceed to walk after her faster and faster. No, go, goo. She screams at this point. She begins casting spells and calling me a devil and shit. So I start to chase her and tell her never to come back. I am happy to say she hasn't ever been near again, but fuck was she the nastiest, craziest person. I'm not even doing the description justice by typing this.
Semi-similar occurrence. Back in high school, I used to work at a stuffed animal store, family business, yada. Manager's husband was Lovely Bones Creepy, and one day, this man on one of those motorized scooter things drives into the store. The minute he enters, I am hit with the worst smell ever. It was as if he had been marinating in his own urine and feces since the moon landing, and he has dandruff all over his shirt the size of quarters. Anyway, he wants to buy his granddaughter a stuffed unicorn, and asks me to pick one out for him, so I do so quickly, just to get him out of my store. At this point, I am alone with Assbutt McGee, and trying not to vomit on my trainers. Of course, he needs me to fish his wallet out and run his card for him, and as I return it to him after ringing up his purchase, he strokes my hand and says something like,
"Thanks, precious."
I wanted to die. He tried coming back a few times after that while I was working, but I just hid in the back of the store praying that he'd go away. I miss how relaxed that job was. I pretty much got paid to browse the internet all day. But I do not miss the interesting people I had to deal with on a regular basis.
Oh man, I'm glad I remember this story. Okay, I was hanging out with my friends and their family one time. Really close friends. They had gotten a new go-kart and we were going to an empty parking lot to try it. After driving it around for a bit, some guy walked up to us and started talking to us. He introduced himself by saying Jim, American, and reached his hand out to shake my friend's father's hand. He then told us how he had just gotten out of prison and how he was going to see his kid. This guy looked really fucking weird and the stuff he was talking about was really strange. He stuck around for like 40 minutes. How do you just tell someone to leave? He sat there and talked forever about his kid. It's cool, but if he was in a hurry to see his kid, why he stuck around for so long? He left when we left, and he followed us to their house. When we realized he had been following us all the way home, we decided not to go home and drove around for like 20 minutes after we already passed the house. He eventually stopped following us. Jim, American.
When I was 16, I had a paper route. Though I didn't deliver the morning newspaper, I delivered the weekend commercial. I had long hair back then, I'm a dude, and a Celtic cross hanging around my neck. I wasn't into religion or paganism or anything. The hair was part of my modest rebellion against my folk, and the cross was a gift from my girlfriend. One day I went to deliver commercial to some apartments. I plopped them into the front door, and, as soon as I had done so, I heard a loud ruckus from inside the apartment. A skinny bald man in his 30s or 40s opens the door. He almost looks out of breath or startled. He had apparently sprinted towards the door in order to catch me. At first, he looks at me more or less confused, but soon breaks into a wide smile. "Hey!" he exclaims and strikes up a conversation with me. I figured I'd be polite since I wasn't in a hurry, and so I stopped to talk to him. The man complimented my long hair. He complimented my cross and my looks. He thought I was cute and interesting and cool. By now I had figured that he was a lonely creep and just wanted to get on with my route. He asked me if I wanted to come in for tea, but I declined politely. He looked, I kid you not, absolutely heartbroken. He said he understood but hoped for another visit. The next week, when I went to those apartments, I thought about what to do with him. His door was closest to the exit, so this time I went up the stairs and worked my way down instead of up. Then I quickly dropped his commercial off and hurried out to my bike. He followed me. As before, he seemed out of breath and broke into a big smile as he saw me. He was a bit worked up because I was already about to leave. I apologized and said that I was really in a hurry today. I said that I was behind on my schedule. This, of course, was a lie. He started pleading with me, asking me if I please wouldn't come in for a while. Surely, I had some time to spare? I said that no I don't. I apologized as sincerely as I could, but I did not have time to linger. He offered to help me with my work so that we could hang out later. I came up with various excuses. I'm a good liar, and finally he was persuaded. He gave up a disheartened sigh and, because he needed some kind of human contact, he grabbed the back of my bike. He figured that he'd give me a rolling start, because my bike was loaded up with heavy bags filled with paper, and sent me on my way. He was nice but really pathetic and creepy. As I continued my route, I noticed that a group of 3 men had been standing and watching the whole scene. They did not seem amused. The fact is, they looked downright hostile as they had witnessed a middle-aged man desperately plead for the attention of a teenage boy. The following week there was a "No commercial, please" sign taped to his door. I never saw that man again, and I do not know what happened to him.
One night I was out walking my dog later than usual, because it had been raining all day and she refuses to go in the rain. So, I'm walking around my neighborhood at about 1 in the morning, can't see shit, and some dude comes out of nowhere and just walks up behind me. Now, because I've lived in this neighborhood for about 5 years at this point, I know everyone, and everyone knows me. I did not know this guy. I tried to be polite and chat with him, but he didn't say anything, so I just left, but he started following me. At this point I'm pretty fucking sure this dude just wants to rob me, but he's not following me very fast. He's just walking. After about 5 minutes of this shit I stop and try to talk to him again. He stops too, but instead of talking he just sort of sways on the spot and bobs up and down a bit, then goes back to walking towards me. I decided it was probably best that he didn't make it to my house, so I sped up and took my dog through other people's yards to lose him. Never saw him again and never heard anyone else have a problem with him. The weirdest part about it all was that my dog didn't bark at him. She's a miniature schnauzer, and anyone who's had one of those will tell you they bark at everything.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel, as more Greentext will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.